He's a congressman focused on combating chaos and crime on our streets. My interview with U.S. Representative Brad Knott starts right now. Welcome to Conversations. I'm Nancy Brinker. In a former career, U.S. Representative Brad Knott served as a crime-fighting prosecutor. His commitment to public safety is not wavered now that he's on Capitol Hill, and we're about to talk about that. I'm delighted to have Congressman Knott join me. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Well, we've seen protests erupt across the country against ICE agents. Can we talk a little about the distinction between free speech and unlawful behavior?
Sure. It's a great question, and it's an important question. And let me first state that whenever anyone is injured or harmed or killed, it's a tragedy, and we should all express that. But that being said, there is a very real distinction between your First Amendment right to exercise protest, to be heard, to express your viewpoints, and disrupting a legal law enforcement operation. And if someone disrupts law enforcement when they are carrying out their delegated duties, that is a criminal offense. That's called obstruction. And unfortunately, what we have seen on the left especially is the willingness to obstruct ICE no matter what the cost is. And if you impede law enforcement, again, you cross that line from First Amendment protections into criminal conduct.
ICE protesters seem to forget that illegal immigration was a key issue in the last election. Are they purposely ignoring the will of the people?
Well, they're purposefully ignoring the will of the people, and they're also purposefully ignoring the law. I mean, the way that the immigration law is written, if someone is here illegally, it specifically states they shall be detained and deported. And we have tremendous immigration problems in this country that hit every area of our life, whether it's housing, health care, obviously fraud, what we've seen in Minnesota with the Somalian population, and those within that community who have just so extensively stolen from the American taxpayer. It is very far-reaching. And it touches every corner of the country, every person in the country. And the president is right to say enough is enough. We need to start enforcing our immigration laws. But let me just remind your viewers of one point. He has offered to pay anyone who self-deports thousands of dollars. The idea that this is a radical president, it does not square with the facts. If you're here illegally, you can get paid to return home. That's not a radical proposition. He's enforcing the law, and he's trying to get illegal immigrants out of the country so that we can embrace legal immigration.
Well, Renee Good's death in Minneapolis has sparked more protests. But doesn't the fact remain that she instigated conflict and refused the ICE agent's order to get out of the car?
You know, it's a tragic situation, but unfortunately, I think what Ms. Good found herself in is a situation that was a broad left-wing current, and that current was designed to harass, it was designed to provoke, it was designed to disrupt ICE. And it was hysterical, it was sort of a flailing exercise, and she, without blinking twice, found herself in a very dangerous situation because she was whether carrying out the orders of those around her or she was willfully trying to impede ICE's operation. And again, whatever the impetus was, she did commit an act that could have very easily threatened the ICE officer's life had he not acted in response to it. You know, she was parked perpendicularly to the traffic pattern. She was blocking ICE vehicles. She did not obey the officer's request to stop the car. She did not obey the officer's request to get out of the car. She mashed the gas pedal and struck a law enforcement officer. And it was a tragedy, but that type of behavior, it endangers law enforcement and it cannot be tolerated. And unfortunately, we see what happened.
Have immigration policies of past administrations enabled sophisticated criminal elements to embed themselves here? And is the current administration doing enough to reverse that?
You know, it's going to take a very disciplined and persistent effort from this administration and likely subsequent administrations. You know, when I was in law enforcement myself, I was amazed at how many illegal immigrants were involved in serious crime, but also how adept they have become at camouflaging in legal society. There are so many who are here committing crimes just like those that we've seen in Minnesota with the Somalian criminals that have stolen $10+ billion, whether it's drug dealers, gang members, whether they're cartel members, human traffickers, fraudsters. I mean, the list goes on and on. And I know for a fact there are many, many, many criminals who are here illegally that are hunkered down. They're going to their jobs. They're trying to blend into society, hoping they can just wait out this administration. So it is a very dire situation. And again, with the right policy and the right effort, it's got to be sustained. I think we can make some real progress.
A lot of retail businesses have been victimized by so-called flash mob thefts, where groups of people organize to invade stores and commit smash and grab robberies. Can you talk about this phenomenon and what you're doing to combat this?
Of course. It's a big topic. We're handling this in a bipartisan way in Congress. It's called organized retail crime, and it affects everything from shipping containers out of ports to railways to trucking routes, all the way down to the stores, whether they're chains or mom and pop businesses that have items locked up behind cages, things as simple as hand soap. And it's all because there has been a huge spike in coordinated criminal activity that targets the cheap and inexpensive all the way up to the very expensive. And essentially what it is, it's a concerted effort to rush into various commercial enterprises, take as much as you can, and then sell it on the black market, whether it's here across state lines or even across global borders.
What are the repercussions of these smash and grab robberies to average citizens?
Well, the average citizen obviously sees an increase in cost. The direct cost to businesses last year was somewhere around $130 billion in lost merchandise.
Wow.
But you also take into account public safety. In my home state of North Carolina, a Home Depot worker was murdered because organized thieves were trying to get 3 pressure washers. I mean, this is the type of nonsense we're dealing with. I mean, truckers, they have to have increased security because they are targeted. Losing their trailers, losing the goods in their trailers. It's a very far-reaching problem that affects everything from public safety to the cost of goods.
When we see organized retail crime like this and unrest on the streets, do you think it's all homegrown, or is some of this being fueled by foreign adversaries?
You know, it's a great question. Of course, there are homegrown participants, but it has been multiplied in severity and frequency because of the unchecked open border. And it affects again every type of industry. But we've seen this. We've seen criminal groups in Eastern Europe, Northern Africa, the Middle East, obviously South America, various parts of Asia, all profit handsomely from goods that they have stolen and sold from the United States theft rings that we're trying to target.
Economic concerns continue to linger for ordinary Americans, but are global hotspots diverting the administration's attention? I'll talk about that when Congressman Knott, when we return. Welcome back. I'm continuing my discussion with Congressman Brad Knott. Not too long ago, the president made a bold move strategically grabbing Venezuelan strongman Nicolas Maduro out of the country to face narco-terrorism charges. How do you think this will play out over the long term?
You know, it's a great question. From a short-term level, let me just tell you this, that Nicolas Maduro was absolutely involved on a very, very robust fashion, or in a robust fashion, pushing drugs into the country. He leveraged his access to the United States, his proximity to the United States, and his real estate specifically to facilitate some of the most proficient drug trafficking in the world, targeting the United States. So I think removing him will have an unbelievably forceful effect in not only punishing, deterring, but also stopping sort of the commercialization of the drug trade into the United States. And then as a broad level, let me just say this very quickly. Our adversaries were using his weakness at home to really capitalize on his proximity to the United States to attack the United States. The president was right to say we're not going to tolerate that, and it sends a really clear message and a strong message abroad.
Indeed. Critics say the administration is spending too much time on the international front and not enough time on economic issues here at home. What are your thoughts about that?
You know, it's worth noting when we talk about domestic issues that are playing out because of international efforts. In the last 25 years, over 1 million Americans have lost their life because of drugs that were manufactured overseas or across our borders and brought into the United States. Over 1 million Americans. It's hard to separate criminal activity abroad from the cost here at home. And that's an incalculable cost. That is not even accounting for those lives that have been lost because of addiction, the diminution in property values, gang violence that's accelerated. So when you look at these criminal elements internationally that are looking to exploit weak policy here domestically, the cost is too high to really calculate. And so the president is acting in a very robust fashion. He acted with a pinprick mentality. He went in and he got out of Venezuela. He seized the leader. He sent the message. This is not a ground invasion. It's not an unending war. It was a very proficient, focused mission to send a message, and I applaud him for doing it.
New York elected a socialist mayor, and some people are already moving out of the city. Do you anticipate getting an influx of New Yorkers to your home state of North Carolina?
You know, it's really baffling. I welcome all people who love freedom, who want more of a free market, who love school choice, who love low regulations, low taxes, and bring those ideas to North Carolina. Although it does break my heart that New York is going to go through what will invariably be a failed experiment again with socialist activity. And it's a wonderful city. I want it to thrive. But it's not going to thrive with government-run grocery stores and emptying the jails and having politically correct energy at every department. It needs to be a robust, free market American city again, and that mayor is not going to take it there.
Very well said. Affordability is a concern. Families are focused on prices, wages, housing, and long-term stability. When you talk with constituents, what do they tell you is hurting them, and where do you see economic progress?
You know, it's a great question. Affordability was an issue long before the 119th Congress started, long before President Trump took office. I mean, we had an unbelievably high inflationary climate over the last 4 years. I believe the average was close to 10% a year with Joe Biden. The president, in his first year in office, he has done some very common sense things like trying to reduce the cost of energy, removing red tape across all industries, trying to recruit businesses back to the United States from abroad, increasing competitiveness. And we've seen some real positive momentum, whether it's the price of eggs, the price of oil, natural gas. The numbers are picking up. But with a strong economy, we can have more competition. More competition will ultimately lead to lower prices for the consumers.
Well, Congressman Knott, it's been a pleasure visiting with you, and thanks so much for spending time with me today and for your commitment to public service. I hope you'll find time to come on again.
Anytime. Thank you.
Thanks.